Okay, you can begin.
Okay, so good afternoon, class. Myself, Unala Terun, and Amanda Sobero will be presenting on Chapter 15, Leading Change. Learning objectives for this chapter include recognizing social and economic pressures for change in today's organization, implement the 8-stage model of planned major change, and use everyday strategies for gradual change. Expand
Onella,
the,
your
yes, sir.
audio is very low. You'd have to either
Oh,
get closer to your microphone, please.
no. Shall I start over?
Yeah, a little better there.
Okay,
No,
expand the,
yeah, just continue on.
okay. Expand their own and others' creativity and facilitate organizational innovation, use techniques of communication, training, and participation to overcome resistance to change, effectively and humanely address the negative impact of change. This chapter explores how leaders facilitate creativity, innovation, and change. We will briefly look at the need for change in today's organizations and examine a step-by-step model for leading major change. We would also explore everyday change strategies and examine how leaders facilitate innovation by fostering creative people and organizations. Lastly, we will discuss why people resist change and how leaders can overcome resistance and help people cope with the potentially negative consequences of change. So, what has changed in terms of leadership? It refers to a leader having the ability to influence and inspire action in others and respond with vision and agility during periods of growth, disruption, or uncertainty to bring about the needed change. Change leadership requires the need to be visionary and forward thinking, and the ability to be agile and responsive to constantly and rapidly changing business environments. Leading change requires creating experiences for people that reveal new possibilities while uniting them to drive strategies and harness the resources to win in the marketplace. It requires optimizing the culture of an organization while making investments to drive business growth simultaneously. Organizational change. This is a major problem in organizations today since they fail to adapt to new changes in the environment. A primary solution to this problem is better change leadership. Leaders serve as the main role models for change and provide the motivation and communication to keep change efforts moving forward. Strong, committed leadership is crucial to successful change. A leader should possess these certain types of characteristics in order to accomplish successful change. These include, firstly, they will define themselves as change leaders rather than people who want to maintain the status quo. They would demonstrate courage. They would believe in employees' capacity to assume responsibility. They would be able to assimilate and articulate values that promote adaptability. They would recognize and learn from their own mistakes. They are capable of managing complexity, uncertainty, and ambiguity. They have vision and can describe their vision for the future in vivid terms. Barbara Way, she was a visionary who believed in change. She had a vision for the company and for a company, the Hewitt Packard, and she believed it can be better. Barbara will often question persons at the top as a reality check, just in case he or she got too complacent in the job. She was a person to get things done. Persons within the company will sometimes go to her for advice. She believed that in order to be successfully changed, she believed that in order to be a successfully changed leader, one must always be willing to lose their job. She was an executive in residence and instructor at UC Berkeley Haas School of Business and in College of Engineering. Barb retired as a director from Hewlett Packard after 25 years using her successive positions as Worldwide Company Recruiting Manager, Personal Director, and Worldwide Change Director from HP Labs and University Relations Director from Worldwide Strategy with focus on US, Africa, and Middle East. So this is an image of what she looks like. Her approach in most situations was teaching people how to be accountable for their actions and ways to deal with the situation. She will assist them with creative thinking. For example, Tanha, who was a former Vietnamese refugee working at HP Labs, regularly sent money to a Buddhist orphanage in Bangladesh, only to have the money disappear en route. When he learned about a new HP project developing low-cost telecommunications and computing services for developing countries, he contacted Hua and asked her to do something about his money transit problem. Hua told her that she couldn't solve the problem for him, but instead she would help him to take the steps necessary to become personally involved in the project and make sure that his concerns were addressed. Leading a major change. Leading a major change project is both absolutely essential and incredibly difficult. So no leader could conduct a major change project on his own, basically. Leaders must recognize that the change process goes through a series of stages and each stage requires a significant amount of time. Also, it is important that leaders guide its employees through each step of the change process. So Dr. John Paul Cutter, who is a professor of leadership, came up with an 8-stage model on how organizations can actually achieve a successful transformation. These stages include establishing a sense of urgency, establishing a coalition, developing a vision and strategy, communicating the vision and strategy, empowering employees throughout the organization to act on the vision, generate short-term wins, keep up the urgency or sustain the acceleration, make the changes stick or institute change. So we'll now go through all of these steps in detail. So what is meant by establishing a sense of urgency? So in order for change to occur, it makes sense if an entire company is on board and all of them want the change. So how does a leader recognize a sense of urgent change? A leader will carefully scan the external and internal environment, looking at competitive conditions, market positions, social, technological, and demographic trends, profit and loss, operations, and other factors. How will they establish the sense of urgent change? Once a potential crisis or problem has been identified, they can find ways to communicate the information broadly and dramatically. For example, developing scenarios showing their followers that what could happen in the future, examine opportunities that should be or could be exploited, start honest discussions, and give dynamic and convincing reasons to get people thinking and talking. And lastly, request support from others, outside stakeholders, and industry people to strengthen your arguments. Establish a coalition. Convincing people that change is necessary often takes strong leadership and visible support from key people within an organization. To lead change, you need to bring together a coalition or team of influential people whose power comes from a variety of sources, including job title, status, expertise, and political importance. Once formed, the Change Coalition needs to work as a team, continuing to build urgency and momentum around the need for change. How can this be achieved? So a leader can identify true leaders in their organization as well as their key stakeholders. They can ask for an emotional commitment from key people, work on team building within their change coalition, check their team for weak areas, and ensure that they are a good mix of people from different departments and different levels within the company. Developing a vision and strategy. When leaders first start thinking about change, there will probably be many great ideas and solutions floating around. They must link these concepts to an overall vision that people can grasp easily and remember. Leaders are responsible for formulating and articulating a compelling vision that will guide the change effort, then developing a strategy for achieving that vision. Basically, a picture of a highly desirable future motivates people to change. A clear vision can help everyone understand why you're asking them to do something. When people see for themselves what you're trying to achieve, then the directives they're given tend to make more sense. How can a leader do this? Determine the values that are central to the change. Develop a short summary that captures what you see as the future of your organization. Create a strategy to execute that vision. Ensure that your change coalition can describe the vision. And lastly, practice the vision speech often. So these are some examples of some major companies' vision speech. So for example, Amazon online retail store, their vision is to be Earth's most customer-centric company. PepsiCo Retail, their vision is to be the global leader in convenient foods and beverages by winning with purpose. Nike Sportswear, their vision is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Amnesty International non-profit, their vision is a world in which every person enjoys all the human rights enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and other international human rights instruments. Fourth stage is to communicate the vision and strategy. So to determine the success of your vision, you need to communicate it frequently and powerfully and embed it within everything that you do. Repetition is important, especially when you're trying to change the way a company thinks about itself since you're trying to create new behaviors. It's also important that leaders walk the talk. What you do is far more important and believable than what you say. Demonstrate the kind of behavior that you want from others. So how can a leader do this? They can talk often about their change vision, address persons' concerns and anxieties openly and honestly, apply their vision to all aspects of operations, from training to performance reviews, tie everything back to the vision, and lastly, of course, lead by example. Empowering employees throughout the organization to act on the vision. This means getting rid of obstacles or change which may require revising systems, structures, or procedures that hinder or undermine the change effort. Removing obstacles can empower the people you need to execute your vision, and it can help the change move forward. People are empowered with knowledge, resources, and discretion to make things happen. So how can a leader achieve this point? They can look at the organizational structure, job descriptions, and performance and compensation systems to ensure they are in line with their vision. They can recognize and reward people for making change happen. They can identify people who are resisting the change and help them see what's needed, or they can take action to quickly remove barriers. Generate short-term wins. Major changes take time, and a transformation effort loses momentum if there are no short-term wins. If there are no short-term accomplishments that employees can recognize and celebrate. A highly visible and successful short-term accomplishment boosts the credibility of the change process and renews the commitments of enthusiasm of employees. A good short-term win must possess three characteristics. It must be visible, unambiguous, and related to the change action. 7. Keep up the urgency, sustaining the acceleration. So building on credibility and momentum achieved by short-term wins to tackle bigger problems. Successful change leaders don't simply declare victory after small wins and become complacent. They use courage and perseverance to give people the energy and power to take on more difficult issues. This often involves changing systems, structures, and policies, hiring and promoting people who can implement the vision, and making sure employees have the time, resources, and authority they need to pursue the vision. Each success provides an opportunity to build on what went right and identify what you can improve. How can this be achieved? After every win, a leader can analyze what went right and what needs improving. They can set goals to continue building on the momentum they are trying to achieve. They can learn about Kaizen, the idea of continuous improvement, or they can keep ideas refreshed by bringing in new change agents and leaders for the change coalition. Lastly, to make the changes stick. So to make the changes stick, it should become part of the core of their organization. Corporate culture of
Versus something I've been meaning to say to you. Like if your phone to me back,
corporate culture often determines what gets done, so the value behind their vision must show in day-to-day work. Leaders need to make continuous efforts to ensure that the change is seen in every aspect of the organization. This will help give the change a solid place in their organizational culture. Hence, transformation isn't achieved until the change have well-established roots where leaders instill new values, attitudes, and behaviors so that employees view the change not as something new, but as a normal and integral part of how the organization operates. So, leading everyday change. The nature of leadership is having an influence on others in many small ways on a regular basis. Good leaders work daily to gradually shift attitudes, assumptions, and behaviors towards a desired future. There are strategies leaders can learn from everyday change that will have a positive, constructive impact as everyday conversations and small actions spread to others throughout the organization. The strategies range from the individual leader working alone to effect gradual change to working directly with others in a more direct and extensive change effort. So incremental change strategy. I'll now put you into Amanda.
Good evening. Um, Onala, I will share my screen, right? So incremental change strategies. Privately, the leader work alone. Publicly, they work with others. Creative self-expression. This is
Amanda, could you start the slideshow because we could barely see your screen.
oh, creative self-expression. This is where leaders behave in such a manner that they would like their employees or other individuals to behave like them, like for example, lead by example, right words. With this strategy, a leader turns an opponent's negative attitude, comments, or behavior into opportunities for change that others will notice. For example, for this is diversity and the challenges that minorities face in the organization. Right opportunities. This is a more public approach for leaders to look for, create, and capitalize on opportunities for motivating others to change. Alliance building. This is the most public and most political approach to everyday change, where the leader works closely with others to move issue to the forefront more quickly and directly than would be possibly working alone. Paul Wilgus is a qualified and experienced coach and facilitator who founded Social Innovation. He is well known for causing a major transformation at the global. His approach was convincing the opponent with whatever he believed that could make him move forward. So he would use whatever they were, the critics they had against him, and try to convince his opponent to agree with him. That was his approach to innovation and creativity. Leading for innovation. Effective leaders find ways to promote creativity in the department where it is most needed. One of the best ways leaders facilitate continuous change is to create an environment that nourishes creativity. Creativity refers to the generation of ideas that are both novel and useful, improving efficiency and or effectiveness for the organization. Creative leaders generate ideas that may meet perceived needs, solve problems, or respond to opportunities, and are therefore adopted by the organization. A major task for leaders today is to harness the creative energy of all employees to spur innovation and further the interests of the organization. Creativity itself is a process rather than an outcome, a journey rather than a destination. These are some characteristics of innovative organization and creative people. So the organization will basically aid in alignment, and the person or the individual will be committed. They would require to have commitment to be focused. The organization will provide creative values, and the individual needs to be interdependent, persistent, and energy. Unofficial activity. The the individual needs to be self-confidence, non-conformity, and curious. Diverse stimuli, open-mindedness, conceptual, fluency, enjoys variety. Within company communication, individual needs to be social, competent, emotionally expressive, and loves people. Alignment basically deals with the company providing a clear vision as to what they want in the company, and the creative value is basically asking the employees to take risk and embrace new challenges to be more creative and innovative. Unofficial activity is also known as dream time, where one can do what they personally desire, a project off the clock. Example, 3M's post-it and doing a project of personal interest. A diverse stimuli is any activity outside of food that can trigger new and creative ideas. Example, visiting a wrestling match, wearing costumes while doing that, doing volunteer work, and associating with different groups. Within company communication. Communication is vital in any company. In order for it to be successful, communication is vital, and communication has to be from top to bottom, leader to the person down the ladder. Everyone must communicate, and in order for it to be effective, it must be communication, face-to-face communication. The following communication topics are discussed in this toolkit: the impact of effective and ineffective communication on the organization and its employees, how to build an effective communication strategy, the various constituencies affected by the communicated information, measuring results, how to select the appropriate audience for each type of message, the types of communication method used in the organization. Leading creative people. Generally speaking, when they are saying leading creative people, they are instigating or insinuating that creative people are people who are risk takers. Testing the waters, as some people will see. By achieving these goals of taking the risk, one needs to brainstorm. Creating brainstorm session is a good way for leaders to encourage creativity in an organization. For example, if your organization faces a problem such as how to reduce losses from shoplifting, show a speed up checkout, how to reduce food waste, or how to lessen noise from a machine room. No criticism. Group members should be able to voice their opinion without anybody turning down their opinion. Freewheeling is welcome. Any advice is acceptable. Sorry, any idea is acceptable. Quantity desired. The goal is to generate as many ideas as possible. This way, it expands the ideas and views that they may have to carry the company further. Brainstorming has been found to be highly effective for quickly generating a wide range of creative alternatives after all the ideas are expressed and recorded, the group can have another session to discuss and evaluate which idea or combination will be best solve the problem. Lateral thinking. Lateral thinking can be defined as a set of systemic techniques used for changing mental concepts and perceptions and generating new ones. With lateral thinking, people move sideways to try different perception, different concepts, and different points of entry to gain a novel solution. Lateral thinking appears to solve problems by an unorthodox or illogical method. Lateral thinking makes an unusual mental connection that is concerned with possibilities and what might be. To stimulate lateral thinking, leaders provide people with opportunities to use different parts of their brain and thus make novel creative connections. Creative intuition. The mind gathers data constantly, especially when you are studying background material on a problem to be solved. Then the creative insight bubbles up as an intuition from the deepest subconscious. The subconscious mind remembers all experience that the conscious mind has forgotten. Creativity often occurs during a mental pause, a period of mixed tension and relaxation. Example, in the shower while exercising, driving, walking, or meditating. The mind reverts to neutral, somewhat unfocused state in which it is receptive to issues or themes that have not been resolved. The global competition, new production techniques, and rapid technology change have placed a premium on creativity and innovation. Although many variables influence creativity and innovation in organizational setups, there is reasons to suspect that leaders and their behavior represent a particularly powerful influence. The present article reviews that the available literature examining leadership behavior contribute to creativity and innovation in organizational settings based on findings obtained in the study. Implementing change. Leaders frequently see innovation, change, and creativity as a way of strengthening the organization. A critical aspect of leading people through change is understanding that resistance to change is neutral and that there are often legitimate reasons for it. The fundamental reasons why employees resist change is that it violates the personal impact between workers and organization. Personal compacts refers to, to the reciprocal obligations and commitments that define the relationship between employees and organizations. These include things such as job tasks, performance requirements, evaluation procedures, and compensation packages. These aspects of the compact are generally clearly defined and may be written in written form. The personal compact incorporates elements such as mutual trust and dependence, as well as shared values. When employees perceive that change violates the personal compact, they are likely to resist. Tools for implementing change, communication, and training. Communicating openly and honestly is the most effective way to overcome resistance to change because it reduces uncertainty, gives people a sense of control, clarifies the benefits of the change, and builds trust. Example, a major failure in some organizations is that management communicate with the public and shareholders about changes but fail to communicate directly with the people who would be directly affected by the change, their own employees. It is important that leaders communicate with people face to face rather than relying solely on newsletter, memos, or electronics communication. Leaders are also leaders also make sure people get the training they need to feel comfortable with new tasks. Participation and involvement. This helps in enhancement when everyone is participating and involving and communicating. Coercion, this is the last resort method where leaders overcome resistances to change by threatening employees with the loss of jobs or promotions, by firing or transferring them. The two phases of change. Change always involves danger because change always begins with loss. In order to change, you must let go of where you are to get where you are going. You leave something behind, you leave something behind. Such loss is usually experienced as a threat and therefore a danger. The letting go phase of change involves losses, which can range from giving up the security of a routine task to saying goodbye to a familiar environment to losing meaningful long-term work relationships. Such a series of losses may be the result of having received a promotion, a new career opportunity. While this is a positive change, it still involves loss. Whether a change is positive or negative, loss is always involved. I'll now hand you over to Anala. Anala?
Yeah, I'm gonna share this.
Watch your mic level again. Huh?
Okay, so to summarize this chapter, you'll realize that you have learned about, sorry, you will realize that you have learned that change is inevitable, and due to an increasing pace of change in today's global environment, leaders struggle to help their organization adapt to a lack of effective change leadership. Leaders who are successfully Leaders who can successfully accomplish change are considered change leaders. They have a vision for the future in vivid terms and articulate values that promote change and adaptability. Change leaders are courageous. They are capable of managing complexity and uncertainty. They believe in followers' capacity to assume responsibility for change, and they learn from their own mistakes. Implementing major change projects to ensure successful change efforts, leaders can use the eight-stage change model by Dr. John Paul Cotter that was mentioned before. Additionally, leaders can also facilitate change on a daily basis by using several everyday change strategies, which include creative self-expression, right words, right opportunities, and alliance building. Leading for innovation is a major change for today's leaders. However, one way to overcome this is by creating an environment that nourishes creativity in particular departments for the entire organization. This can be achieved by using the 5 elements of innovation. This can be achieved by using the 5 elements of innovation organization, such as alignment, creative values, unofficial activity, diverse stimuli, and within company communication. We also learned that leaders can increase individual creativity by facilitating brainstorming, lateral thinking, and creative intuition. Implementation is a crucial aspect of any change initiative. Once leaders understand why people resist change and how to overcome resistance, they can achieve a major change project. To overcome resistance, leaders can use communication and training participation and involvement, and as a last resort, cohesion to overcome resistance. Leaders should recognize that change can have negative as well as positive consequences. One of the most difficult situations leaders may face is downsizing. They can use techniques to help ease the stress and hardship for employees who leave as well as maintain the moral and trust of those who remain. So the time everybody has been waiting for class discussion. So we just have two questions for the class instead of asking the class if they have questions. So we have two questions. Nothing too difficult. So of the 8 stages of the planned change, which one do you think leaders are most likely to skip and why? Anybody?
In the comments, somebody mentioned 6 accomplished short-term wins.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Smith says 1, create a sense of urgency. You guys need to defend your
Yeah, tell me
choices,
why.
you know.
Right. The reason I say the first one, which is create a sense of urgency, I sometimes personally feel that when you, I guess when you create a sense of urgency, you sometimes create too much pressure before you start. If you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but that's just my point of view, I suppose.
Sorry, I have a lot of background noise. I was saying accomplish short-term wins because leaders, I feel, focus more on long-term. And with the short-term, it's kind of more trial and error.
Okay. For me, it would be 5 because I think it's very difficult for most leaders to remove barriers in a sense that they may get caught up in the old current system and they might want to change certain policies, certain structures, or even take risks. Okay, so last question.
What about you, sir? You didn't answer.
Okay, so last question. So, what are some ways leaders can overcome resistance to change?
I would say inclusion of the team or the employees and workers.
Okay, you mean communicating and to communicate more effectively
Yeah,
and okay,
communicate the plan and everything.
okay. Anybody else? Yeah. So, thank you so much for paying attention and participating. I appreciate it. Hope everybody enjoyed it.
Oops, we lost Sabera there.
So I'm here.
Okay, so we finished. Are there any other questions that people want to ask? All right, I'm going to pause the recording or stop the recording now.